So welcome to our Zoom, our fireside chat of the year into 2021. So I'm very glad to have Chiara and Fariba joining us.
Great.
And I'll just briefly introduce Chiara and Fariba, if I can bring that up. So I've got Fariba here. She's currently the Director of Center of Advanced Food and Genomics and a former Director of an ARC Food Processing Training Center. She's based at the School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering at our university. And I've got Chiara here. She is an Australian Research Council Future Fellow, and she's a Professor of Physical Chemistry based at the School of Chemistry. So welcome. And we'd like to hear more about you. So how about Fariba, you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thank you very much. And I completed my bachelor and master degree overseas in chemical engineering, and I then came to Australia and joined the University of New South Wales to do my PhD. And after completion of my PhD, I worked as a research associate and senior lecturer at UNSW. And since 2006, I joined University of Sydney School of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering, and my employment was to establish bioengineering at this school, in particular the area of biomolecular engineering. And since then, I established a bioengineering laboratory, which was a multidisciplinary research team. And now we have, of course, when I started, I have only one PhD student, small grant that I brought from Sydney, from UNSW as ARC. And of course, school also gave me some seeding fund for a startup of my research in here. But we have to apply for many grants. And now we have a big team, around 25 researchers in the Center for Advanced Food and Genomics and Bioengineering, around 5 research assistants, 8 postdoctoral fellows, and around 8 to 10 PhD students. And we are growing, and we are looking for having more people in our team.
Very good. In the space of 14 years. You've done a lot. How about Chiara?
So I studied at the University of Florence. I got my master's degree and PhD there. But during my PhD, I really wanted to learn how to measure intermolecular forces. And the Department of Applied Maths at the Australian National University was a leader, really world leader in this area. And so at the time, I moved to the ANU for what was supposed to be a one-year-long project. And that was 20 years ago, 21 now. So after that, I moved back to Europe and did a few postdocs in Germany, but then got a DECRA to return to the ANU. And then when the DECRA finished, the School of Chemistry here at Sydney advertised for a lectureship. I applied, and to my great surprise, I was selected and offered the position. And at that stage, I'd been a postdoc for 6.5 years, but I still was quite surprised by the outcome. And I guess I didn't have greater confidence in my abilities. And but Sydney Uni has really helped me to get that confidence over time. And I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I've had to grow my group, to grow a research program, and to really interact with experts in many other fields. So
So you're here for 14 years as well?
So almost 14 years, or 13 years.
Interesting.
And more recently, as part of Sydney Nano, obviously expanding that collaboration and network a lot more. So that's an aspect that I think is very relevant to today's topic. How do you get people to collaborate and put in the time that's required, invest really a lot of energy, but how do you motivate people to do that?
It's a lovely segue, Chiara. So why should we collaborate?
Why? That's a good question. So I would say there's a lot of reasons why it's a good idea to collaborate. But let's say from a government, a university point of view, it's clear that the institutions want us to collaborate because that's how we maximize impact and how we maximize also the use of whatever infrastructure we have available. So in a sector like academia, where competition is so strong, and also gaining equipment is very expensive, it's really a must to collaborate. So there's no question that that is necessary, but I would say that beyond that, it's important because of what it gives research. So it does allow you to widen the scope of the questions you can ask and aim for higher impact in the outcomes. And a lot of the societal challenges that we're facing really only can be solved with that multidisciplinary approach. So you can't, one single person cannot have all those skills. There is no perfect person, but there can be a perfect team.
Ooh.
And so a collaboration is what brings you that.
That's something we'll touch on later. So how about Fariba? What do you think?
And just agree with what Chiara said. And you know, as you said, time is limited, and particularly in engineering, we always need to have teamwork, collaboration, and solve the problem. You know, problem solving requires to have a team to do, you know, solve the problem, and it is impossible to achieve it with just one person. You cannot have all the resources or the facility and all the expertise for solving it. Particularly global problems like sustainability or other things that our community is facing these days is not by only one skills or expertise. And we can, as you mentioned, we can minimize you know, finance. You know, you can't have all the resources that you want in one place by yourself.
So it sounds
collaborate and make sure that also time. You know, you need to achieve something within limited time. And if you do collaboration, you can bring the team together to make sure that you can meet the deadline. It's not just grant application, you know, many other things that we need to solve in our community. You can look at this COVID-19, you know, all scientists now work together to make this vaccine, which usually takes ages to deliver to their community. But because we all face the same problem, put all of the resources together to bring the vaccine available for all global people around the world to hopefully get rid of this problem.
That's a good example, isn't it? So collaboration is an answer to limited resources, but even if we have unlimited resources, it's important that we pull different expertise and skills to tackle really big problem. And like you say, we can expedite research outcome. So, Fariba, do you have an example of a successive collaborative project that you were involved?
There are many of those, but one that I'm really proud of, that you know our team worked together, was actually for success that we made for the ARC Training Center. You know, when ARC announced in 2012 that you know they opened new scheme for research grant, and you know you could ask for 1 million per year. Everybody was interested to apply, and we had very limited time. But for that scheme, industrial research program that ARC opened, you have to have collaboration with industry, and without that you couldn't apply for that grant. And our school was very strong in collaboration with industry. We make a MIPS program, which basically give students to go and work in industry and for a short period of time. And also we have a track record of success in linkage grant for industry collaboration. And we thought, okay, we should be able to apply for this scheme of grants.
So what's the training center for?
And that scheme open only for food and agriculture. Yes, and then we organize meeting with our school so colleagues and also with people from other school, agriculture and medicine scientists, and we were thinking, okay, how we can use time that we had 1 month. I'm sure if you apply for linkage grant, you can imagine how difficult it is to bring a partner on board.
That's right.
To make cash and in-kind contribution. And we had 12, actually within 1 month, we were able to bring 12 industry partners to make cash and in-kind contribution.
Wow.
And then we should start writing the proposal, and actually we had only 2 weeks and it wasn't possible if we couldn't collaborate together. And I'm very proud of my colleagues at Sydney University that work parallel to each other, and we put this grant together. But one thing that was very interesting for me, the last day, research office, we sent out a grant, and I said, okay, it's finished. Now we can relax. And they did some checking on our grant, and they said, oh, you have, for every partner, you need to make industry partner. And the partner investigator, and they should have rope.
Oh no.
You can imagine. And I was actually, at that time, I was in US, and I was catching the last flight to come to Sydney. When I saw that email in the airport, I said, it is impossible to achieve this. How can I bring 12 industry partners, contact them, make the RMS, ID for them, and ask them to prepare the rope and put it in the application. And I had, as I said, I'm very proud of our school colleagues and all my colleagues that work together. Everybody take responsibility to contact one of the partner, and we apply on the research office also supportive to apply for the RMS. For each partner and write for the rope, and everybody thought, oh, when it was lunch time, they said, oh, it's not possible to submit this grant, we have still lots of things to do, but we submit that grant the last minute, 5 minutes before the submission time. And everybody was counting this, RMS to make sure it is saved and applied. But it was, without collaboration in our group, it wasn't possible to submit that grant, and it was successful. We were really enjoy working together and established this training center as a first training center at Sydney University with all the challenges that we had, and and we had very great outcome for the industry. And also we had so many entrepreneurs in this center, which I'm very proud of them. That's, I think.
So just putting the grant together was quite an achievement. And it reflects the quality of the team, you reckon?
I think so, yes. And team is very important, and collaboration is required, that everybody has got common goal. And make commitments and support each other, no matter where which stage we are.
Oh, very good. How about you, Chiara?
So an example of a good collaborative project, I'd like to give a different example to Fariba, one that's very sort of small scale, really two people with a student co-supervised. And also a situation where there wasn't, like in this case, a lot of money involved.
And very stressful.
That was much smaller scale, but very much fueled by common interest in research. And I've got two cases in mind. Both were with people who are in my general area, so surface chemists, or nanotechnology, let's say, but from a theoretical or simulation point of view. And so there the motivation was really, I do experiments. My group is all about measuring nanoscale effects on surfaces, flow or spreading of liquids at surfaces. And we have very good tools to do that. But then often with the results, you need an interpretation that's beyond what the experiments can do. And that's where either molecular dynamic simulations or other types of simulations can be very useful. And in both of these situations, we had a joint student, and I think that was really a key to the success. So the student, both cases were very good students. They were able to talk to both supervisors very fluently in both the areas. So they balanced, the theoretical and the experiments, and that really was crucial to its success. So the other thing that was important was that both people I had met before, we had known each other for a while, and we respected each other, and that was, I guess we'll touch on that later, but one of the key requirements for a successful collaboration is that there's mutual respect and trust, and that you're in this journey together, also because you enjoy working together and not just because of the science, obviously that's a big part,
Yeah.
but you also enjoy spending time together and talking over things, and everyone brings a fresh perspective. That's what you want in a good collaboration.
Yeah, we can go into details of that project a bit more. So, Fariba, I want to talk more about that project. So, it was a very successful proposal, and the process of putting it in was, that's the best thing that happened to you. What happened afterwards? Was it still a good project? And what made it so good?
Yeah, I think, as I said, we brought a multidisciplinary team together. We hired good students, outstanding students, and we had very good engagement. All academics that were involved in that project and industry partners were very supportive. Of course, there are challenges as well. I want to talk about it.
Yeah.
It will be very long, but it was at the end worked very well, I think, in terms of, because the scope of this grant was to train researchers, and all these researchers completed the PhD. We had a couple of startups from postdocs and researchers who work in that center, and they all now working in industry, and they had opportunity to collaborate with industry closely and engage with industry, and that was, I think, and also the outcome was very beneficial for the company. They solved the problem of the industry that they required. And
so how did you run it? What did you do? What were the practices that you had that made it successful, you think?
I think, of course, leadership is important, but I think, as I mentioned, team is also very important. Everybody has a common goal. We were all excited to make it successful and make sure that we achieve what we put in the proposal as a aim of an objective of the projects. And I think the teamwork was very, very important. That was a key for the success of that center.
And it was a multidisciplinary project as well.
That's right.
What do you think it will be different? I mean, or all collaborative projects are multidisciplinary now anyway? And what are the challenges of running that, do you think?
Challenge of multidisciplinary, basically, we need to learn the language of different discipline has got different way of thinking, and we need to understand and of course respect each other and listening to, and I think this is very important, and time commitment, this for the make sure that we understand each other and be transparent, and communication is very important for multidisciplinary organized team meeting, and to make sure that we come to same goal and support.
So when you
other.
say communication, just keeping everybody on the same page, up to date, knowing what is expected of them, keeping them engaged, I guess.
Yeah, of course, yes. Keeping people engaged, and also, as I mentioned, communication different level. Everything should be transparent in the multidisciplinary team, and make sure that everybody knows where we are, where we're going, have a common goal. Everybody has got responsibility, be inclusive, and these are key factors for.
Very good. Chiara? Good practice or the best practice?
Yes. So on this note, I just like to do a plug. There's a PLOS Computational Biology is a journal that produces a kind of editorial article called 10 Simple Rules.
Yeah.
And I encourage everyone who's interested in these topics to look them up. So there's several.
Say that again.
PLOS Computational Biology. It's an open access journal, but as part of it, it's got a section called 10 Simple Rules. And they've got at least 3 articles that I've found called 10 Simple Rules for a successful cross-disciplinary collaboration, for example, or an international collaboration, or for different aspect of basically the academic life. There's 10 simple rules for anything you want to do in academia, so it's worth consulting.
And what did you find?
I was just trying to check, whether my own experiences matched what most people find. And yeah, in general, I'd say that's true. They sort of worded what I experienced myself. I mean, in a cross-disciplinary research, there's really an aspect of you have to be interested in the other fields that you're encountering.
Yep.
It shouldn't be a chore to have to learn other people's vocabulary. And for me, I really find it invigorating. I mean, I get this aspect where if you hear too much of your own discipline, you can get very blasé, like, oh, that's been done before. You sort of lose that curiosity, that enthusiasm for, oh, you mean you can measure this?
Yeah, right? And I like the way you can solve a problem with a different angle.
That's right. Or even just know a problem that you didn't know existed, and you find that you have the tools to solve that. Or that maybe for you it's not even a problem because for you it's straightforward. So, I mean, in a way, it's very similar to any outreach activity that you ever do. You find that the public is your most enthusiastic supporter, right? Because to them, everything is new. And similarly, when you work within a cross-disciplinary group, you find that enthusiasm, people give you energy back. And that, I think, adds a lot to the enjoyment of it for me. So the other things that...
Can I ask a question? Does it put you outside of your comfort zone a bit?
Oh yeah, I mean, you're constantly talking about things that you're not entirely qualified to talk about, but as long as you don't have a problem with that and admitting that, I think
and when people how about people ask you questions that you take it for granted? Do you find that?
You haven't explained it.
Yeah. Or your understanding of a problem, you just take it for granted. They ask you, well, how about this and that? Do you ever find that that's interesting? I never thought of that.
I'm not sure about the taking for granted aspect, but definitely there's, and this is where the communication comes back, that sometimes you think, okay, this aspect we've already established, this is in the bag, and then months later it comes back out and you find out, actually, no, we hadn't discussed it. I mean, here maybe we can enter in a territory of unpleasant or unsuccessful collaborations, and I find in my case, the origin of unpleasant interactions has always been because there was something that I thought was established that we hadn't actually discussed explicitly. So, for example, the list of authors in a paper. In this particular case, it stretched over several years, and as new students came in, they contributed more than the students that were involved in the start. And my own rule of thumb is, in the end, we'll see who's contributed more, and that's how we distribute authorship. The place that I was visiting on my sabbatical at the time, Cambridge, was full of really ambitious people, right? And for them, that approach was not acceptable, right? We were the people there in the first place, and we should be the first author on the paper, even though it was patently unfair to the other students that joined later. And yeah, that was a shock to me. And clearly, I recognized that was a fault. I had assumed that this sort of honorable agreement would be shared by everyone, but that wasn't the case.
Okay, well, that's interesting. That's one of the, we can dwell more into the challenges. So how about an international collaborative project? Have you guys been involved, and what are the challenges and the joy? Late night meetings. Tell me about your experience. Is that something that you will go, I think I would prefer doing domestic? When is it necessary to do international, do you think?
I think international collaboration extend your, basically reputation, and make more reputation. You can access to the facility that is not available locally, perhaps. And also their resources. Sometimes they have some resources that can be easily accessible, for some grants. Some grants that they can apply and you can not apply here much easier, perhaps. But as you mentioned, because we are in Australia, sometimes it's very challenging, particularly, for example, if you are in Europe or US and you wanted to send your student or researcher to go for a short period, it will not cost you that much for your grant to support the student. But for us, because we are far away down, far away from US or Europe,
From everywhere.
Yeah, it is difficult to support the students go for longer time to obtain more experience. And I think this is very important. And to have international collaboration, but these are the challenges that we are facing. Also another challenge, you would like to go and collaborate with some communities, but they have issue of, cultural issues that they don't, particularly for female, perhaps they don't want to collaborate with female, and also sometimes they don't want to collaborate as, they are very protective, and they take your IP is become a matter of challenge as well. We need to be aware of these things if you wanted to make international collaboration, because maybe you are open to share, but I mean this can be everywhere, but in international perhaps sometimes it will be more challenging.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, very good. So Chiara, maybe we go a bit negative and then come back to the positive. So you talked about, there can be collaborative projects that didn't quite work out. So can you share a bit, have you ever experienced that, and what made it go not so right? And if you were given another chance, what would you do?
Yeah. Well, so the couple that I've had that had left a bad taste in my mouth have always been mostly on a personal level, I guess. So the science still got done, and the project was still successful by most measurements that you can have, like publications. But yeah, the personal relationship was no longer there at the end, or you don't really want to do it again. And well, in all cases it was particular reasons. As I said, in one case I thought was people being too pushy or too ambitious, to wanting to grab at papers. In another case it was not being aligned with what we wanted out of a grant, for example. So in one case it was more about take the money and run that thing. Whereas, I think, with any collaboration, you should really consider very thoroughly before you start why you're getting into this. And if the answer is, because this person is very big in my field and it will be good for my name, or because I might get some money, that in itself should not be a reason to come in. A collaboration. You really need to have an interest in the science, and it has to be fitting really well within what you want to do anyway. It has to be something that interests you and will interest you for a while, because anytime you go outside your field, it will be longer and more drawn out, and you have to enjoy the process as well as what the outcome will be. And I think you can tell when that's not been the case for everyone in the team at the outset, and then it normally folds because you're not aligned in what you want out of the project. I mean, I've heard the rule that there's a 3-strike rule. So everyone has bad times during their career, for example. So you've committed to a project and maybe you can't deliver on time, or you can't turn up to meetings. Again, that's where the collaboration is really important. You have to talk about that with your collaborators, but you give people a chance to make it up to you. But after 3 strikes, if they keep basically not explaining themselves or not collaborating, not turning up, then you decide maybe this collaboration is not going well, and we try and find a way to reduce the duration and fold it into something else. And that sometimes has to happen. I'd say, collaboration is very hard. As a general rule, it requires time and energy. And so you have to be in it because it's worthwhile the whole way through, not just for the outcomes.
So what kind of collaborator is a good collaborator? What sort of personal or technical characteristics do you think they should have?
So I think it's always good to collaborate with someone, obviously, that's filling a gap that you feel in your own background or expertise or equipment. and that also helps with the avoiding sort of too much competition.
Yeah.
You're not exactly in the same field, you each have your areas of expertise, and you're confident within that. I think that's a good starting point. From a personal point of view, I think there is a type of person who's more into collaboration. They're generally, very sort of curious, but also generous people. They have enough going on in their own life, in their own work, that it's not about every single, winning every single aspect of a conversation or of a project. They can be generous, give and take. And communication is really important. So, since being an academic, I've learned that there's all disciplines about, basically how do collaborations work and what are the key elements of a successful, let's say, healthy work relationship. And, in corporate, they would train people to do difficult conversations. How do you go through a conversation about a grant or about a paper, putting everything openly and keeping emotions low. There's a whole discipline behind that. But for us, we come into this and we think, should be easy, right? We just do this, and then, so that's when you realize, no, you really need to spend time developing all those aspects, and it's a training. Manage the situation.
So someone with a high IQ and probably high emotional intelligence as well. They tend to be maybe the easier people to work with.
Yes.
So, Fariba?
Yeah, I agree with Chiara. I think she covered everything for good collaborator. It should be a good team player.
Someone you can trust.
Patient and can be sharing. Not be too much protective of. It is important to share when you want to collaborate. And also, I think they should listen.
What about reliability? Would you think a good collaborator should be someone you can rely on as well?
You want to take that? Okay. Well, reliable, I guess. What I would say with that means that they say what they mean. They don't commit too much just to look good, that kind of thing. And if they can't deliver, then they let you know the reason and why. And so they don't just stop answering the phone or your emails, that sometimes happen, but they let you know, right? And sometimes it can be very hard to be open, but I think it's important at one point to say, look, I'm only in this for the money. Give me a cut of the grant and I'll let you run. Sometimes it's happened to me that I had to work that out, but that was the situation I was in, sort of out of my own account, and I never got confirmation from that person that was the problem. It would have been made my life and the project so much easier if they had just been clear about what their
intentions
were, expectations, why am I this?
So that's a good answer. You also be realistic about it. So with research, people want to be as reliable as they can, but sometimes they may not be able to deliver. And if we can be realistic about it as well, and like you say, be upfront about it. Industry collaboration. We can talk a bit about that before I open the floor to the participants. Industry collaborations, what makes them different, and how does it make the project different and the way you collaborate different? Or are they different at all?
I think it is different because the language that because in the academia, we always think, we have grants, we can spend time, 3 years to solve the problem or achieve the outcome that it is expected to achieve. But the company has different vision and different way of thinking compared with academia. They wanted to make sure that we can deliver to them what they ask. And the problem that we have, we always excited about our research, and we wanted to tell the company, this is what you have to do. But we don't listen to what they really have as a problem and why they come to us. And I think the most important to change our way of thinking, to don't get too excited about our research. First, listen to the company, industry collaborator. What is the problem? are we going to, or do we have a skill to help them to solve the problem and make sure that their time frame is very tight and we should deliver and we should make sure that we make this trust to them that they can trust us that we can deliver to them what don't promise something that is not achievable within the time frame that they want. And the language that we use, we have to change. We have to change the language of business rather than talking about academic, because sometimes I've seen researchers go and show beautiful graphs that if you go to a conference, you will be proud to show and share with your academic colleagues. But for industry, that graph is nothing. You need to put the value of dollar everywhere to tell them, okay, this is something that if we do this, it can have this benefit for you. They should know what benefit they will get from collaboration with us, understand their challenge, what problem they have, and what value we can bring for them.
So how do you balance between academic research outcome as opposed to maybe a product or a service for a company? Do you try to divvy up your team to deliver both, or how do you strike that balance?
I think we need to have different sorts of people for research, and of course sometimes they are the same, because if you wanted to have a PhD student, you need to make some goals that bringing new knowledge to the field, innovation, something like that. But most of the issues for the company maybe doesn't have the outcome that will be novel. Of course, it can potentially bring IP for the company, but most of the time it's problem solving, which is you can use your common knowledge to solve that problem. And that cannot be a PhD. And what we need to have other resources for supporting the industry. Sometimes research assistants that they can have a short-term project working with the company to just solve the problem. I think our school has got good program that we can use honor the student to solve the problem of industry, and we can expand it. We can for the other projects that the company bring to us. And it's very important to make trust, as you mentioned, with the industry, to start with something simple that it is achievable, that they can see that you can deliver, you are reliable, you can bring the outcome for them, which will be beneficial. And I think University of Sydney is good to have this Sydney Farm. Of course, last year we couldn't have any because of the COVID-19, but I think they support industry. There are some other organizations provide some small funding that you can do small project with industry to bring the trust to the company, and then they can come with a bigger project. But I think we need to change our language to talk to the industry. The way that we write reports should be different.
To manage the expectations, break the problem down to smaller achievable ones, and maybe simplify the language a bit, make it understandable. And usually people in company don't have time to read your 10-page report.
Bring the things that is important for them on the first page and talk about that bring them on board to listen to the rest.
That's right. And Chiara, you've done industry.
Yes. So I've had several linkage grants, and I'm currently still pursuing a lot of industry engagement as part of the Sydney Nano Grand Challenge on atmospheric water capture. So I would agree with everything Fariba said. In academia, when collaborating with academics, we know more or less what the reward system is. Everybody's after publications or presentations at conferences and so on. In industry, obviously, the reward system is very different and typically is related to money, but also it can be related to know-how. So they want to know something about their process that their competitors don't know, or it helps them to develop new products if they understand the previous product, that kind of thing. But clearly, there's not that alignment. And so I think the biggest challenge is to make sure that within the relationship, everybody's getting a bit of what they need. So obviously, it's really important to deliver to the industry needs, because otherwise there won't be another interaction in the future. But also there should be an avenue by which, if anything novel is being produced, then it's allowed to be released at some point in the future. And typically, publications do come, but they're much delayed. So I find that, I would say, a little bit frustrating, because sometimes you're working on really exciting things right now. In 5 years' time, when you publish, they will no longer be exciting. You can still publish it, but you won't be number one on that list, and that's happened to me quite a bit. So I guess, again, if you go back to the idea that you enjoy the journey, so you won't get quite as much recognition. Maybe you can't publish it in as high impact journals as you would like to, but if you're still learning a lot in the process, then it's still worthwhile.
And also depending on the what the funding priorities are. I mean, there's quite a lot of emphasis on industry-linked project, and there seems to be a bit more money, funding opportunities around there. So it's very good to know what to look out for. So I'd like to open the floor to participants asking questions. So you can either input your question in the chat box, or you can just put your hand up, raise your hand, and speak up. So are there any people who are interested in asking Fariba and Chiara questions about collaborations? Anything you come up with? No? People are enjoying the seminar so far? Oh, good. I can see one thumbs up. Very good. The rest, I hope they're still here. Oh, claps. Very good. Another thumbs up. Any questions from the audience?
Maybe what we could ask is if there's any situation that people have encountered that hasn't gone, is a question.
Okay. So, Ethan, hi both. Excellent sharing. May I ask what sort of factors you will look for from an ECR who you will invite for collaboration? Very good question, actually.
Yes, I'm happy to start. So, as an early career researcher, you have a lot of sort of energy and time, hopefully, to put into collaboration, and that's hugely important. So I would say that that's a great asset to any ECR. Normally, when you're at early stage of career, you might be in a, for example, in a research-only position. So you have fewer time constraints. You're not teaching. You don't have so many committees to sit on, and that is a huge bonus, right? So that's a great advantage that people will be looking to get a piece of. So that's really a positive. The negative, I guess, might be that they don't know you, or they don't know very well what you're able to do. You might have some papers from your PhD, for example, but maybe you've moved to a new area, or maybe you think you can do a lot more than what your PhD was showing, and sometimes it can be hard to demonstrate your worth, I guess, just based on the piece of paper. But I think putting yourself forward with some ideas is the first good step. So demonstrate that you have thought about the person you want to collaborate with, and you're going to them because you have a specific thing you want to do with them. That you can, and you have both something to offer from yourself, but also you can see that there's something in the other person in this project. So you're well aligned in interests. I would say it's good to be ambitious, but you also want to show that you care about the relationship. So having very, clearly everybody wants to publish and publish well, but you also want to keep a good relationship, and that has to be clear in your interactions, so respectful interactions. someone who has a good exposure to maybe international networks is good. So you'll find in Australia, definitely if you've done a period abroad or you've studied abroad in good groups, you'll get a very good reception. That's partly because Australia is relatively isolated from the rest of the world, and so we really welcome input from other countries.
Yeah, I think you cover everything. But as you said, the most important, as an early career, you have more time. You can explore. It is good to go to conferences and every network events that are organized by the university to meet people. Of course, now we have some restriction, but even this network is good. You can meet people, talk to people, and find out how you can establish collaboration. What is the common ground that you can work? Is there any benefit, to collaborate? And also, yes, you don't have, too much time, but the time that you have is more than, of course, Chiara or myself that have to do more. And you can definitely use this opportunity to, attend most of the events and make sure that you engage with other people. And communication is really make a good, step for establishing the collaboration.
Yeah. So what I found is some of my postdocs or even PhD students, they are very proactive in talking to their own peers, actually. So they, a lot of the collaborations actually through my students and PhDs. So what they do is they talk to fellow PhDs and fellow postdocs, but in another group. And then they'll come to me and go, well, I've got this problem I like to solve. I like to visit this person. I like to work with this person. And most of the supervisors will find that, very welcoming. And then the supervisors start talking to each other, but pretty much let them work out, the details of the collaboration. So maybe Eason, there's one way to do it is, expand your network to other people in your contemporary, and then work with your supervisor and have an open communication with your supervisor. And these PhD and postdocs that you collaborate with, or the ECRs, will be your future colleagues, will be your future collaborators in 10 years' time. There's another question. How do you rate the role and value of MDIs, multidisciplinary institutes, as vehicle to establish multidisciplinary collaborations? What trainings you have like to have to be better prepared to collaborate? Two questions there, the role of MDIs and the value for multidisciplinary collaboration.
Yeah. So I can speak about the Sydney Nano Institute and their Grand Challenge initiative that was started in 2018. That was really crucial for me to get to meet a number of people across the university that I'd never spoken to before. And because they had this round of proposals, the ones that were selected received some seed funding. And I guess I would say that seed funding is the one way to ensure that the collaboration gets off to a good start. So there is a little bit of money there to get some research started that crosses everyone's boxes in terms of interests or ambitions or general areas that they would like to move into. And being able to have access to that is crucial. So Sydney Nano, I think, did an excellent job in enabling that. Training, I'm not sure whether, other than what I mentioned before, to do with interpersonal relationship training. I don't know that that's necessarily an MDI role to cover, but yeah, as I said, there's a kind of thing that in the corporate world, people are asked to attend this workshop and learn these skills, because at some point you'll have a run-in with a colleague and you want to be able to manage in a professional manner. And that kind of training, I guess the university has a lot of programs like that. It's not necessarily the role of an MDI perhaps to do that kind of thing, but at the university. If you want to do that kind of thing, there are many options.
Yeah, that's food for thought though.
It'll be interesting to see if university actually have workshops like this, you know. Maybe we can come up with all these scenarios of experienced researchers. These are the scenarios we come across and, you know.
Yeah, also the university, through career path, you can look into things like managing difficult conversations or negotiating skills, those kinds of things. And I would say for ECRs, don't think that the most senior people will, born knowing how to do that stuff. It's, first of all, it remains hard for everyone. And second, you only really can get better if you practice and you learn from your mistakes and you look at the literature. I mean, as academics, we're into that, right? Look at the literature of how you're supposed to do it and try to emulate best practice.
And as you mentioned, it comes by, making wrong collaboration, and you learn what I've done. Of course, you can listen to other people. Why did they fail in this collaboration? Why they were successful? And say, okay, these are the key points. And when I wanted to establish my own collaboration with someone, I have to follow these rules. And I think we talk about this already. That, what are the key important things in the collaboration?
I guess for us in our career, good to have some mentors as well that we can, go and talk to and go, look, I've got this difficult situation. How should I go about it? So, role of MDIs. Fariba, do you have any comment to add to it?
I think sometimes, we organize specifically, how to collaborate with industry, how to write reports, how to improve your communication. We have, for training of the researcher, we have this type of training. When we had the training center, we actually had this. Show them how to give the pitch, and this 3 minutes talk that all university organized. This is somehow, give training to the researcher, how they can teach their research in a simple language, make it attractive. We have this sort of training, particularly for seminar presentation, we organize this type of training for the students. We brought some people with expertise to show them how to talk, communicate.
So food for you for thought, Gunta. Any other questions before we finish the fireside chat? No? So, well, thank you very much, Fariba, and thank you very much, Chiara, for coming along. And I really enjoy the chat that we have, and I hope people enjoy it too. And you'll be able to meander through the wonderful world of collaboration. So I wish everybody will be able to collaborate with people and we'll be able to share your wonderful experience after your successful collaborative project with us. And thank you again for joining, and I look forward to seeing you again in the next Sydney Nano Fireside Chat. Thank you. And
goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.